This is all about resilience. A Nebraska farmer has been forced... Wait for it. OK, this is quite gruesome.
This is an incredible story.
He's been forced to cut off his own leg.
Oh, no.
Using a pocket knife because it became stuck in a piece of farm equipment. His name is Kaser, and he joins us now. Very good morning to you, Mr. Kaser.
Good morning.
This is an extraordinary story. You were out on the farm, you had your equipment, you looked down, you realised your... you explain the story because it's quite a thing.
Well, I was on the farm. We was transferring grain from bins to bins, and I don't know if you're familiar with an auger, but it's a tube, big tube with a corkscrew type deal inside that transfers grain, pushes it through this tube, and there's a swinging hopper on the end of it. And this winter I had cut a hole in the screen of the hopper to get under a different bin because the ground was frozen, and that's the way I made it clear. And when we took the auger away to put in this other bin, I didn't fix the hole. And I was emptying grain out of a truck, and I went over, raised the truck up, walked around, and stepped right in the hole in the auger to use the trap door. And it, needless to say, it grabbed my leg and pulled it in.
Now,
And
in that moment, Kurt, in that moment, you must be thinking, I'm in terrible trouble here.
Yeah, I remember telling myself this is not good, and then I said it again to myself. I said, "This is bad."
Yeah. There was a point, wasn't there, Kurt, when I mean it was quite bad quite quickly, because didn't you see your foot at the bottom of the bin?
Yeah, well, it was in the hopper.
Yeah.
It was up further in the hopper, and it was just bouncing up in there, and there was clothing and stuff by that foot all the way to me, and it just kept jerking me, and I didn't know what it was going to do, if it was going to re-catch and pull me all the way in, or, you know, I didn't know.
And
My
in that
biggest
moment,
concern
Kurt,
was how long I was going to stay caught.
Yeah.
Right. So Kurt, I mean, presumably, Kurt, in that moment now, you're thinking you may die, and the only way that you can save your own life, because there's no one around to help you, the only way you can save your own life is to do something very dramatic, which, as it turned out, was to cut your own leg off with a penknife.
Yes, I mean, don't misunderstand. I didn't cut my whole leg off because the auger did a pretty good job on it, but there was a partial, that and clothes, that I had to cut, because when I was cutting, I could feel nerves or whatever pinging in my leg. But I mean, it wasn't a big chunk, but I got it cut loose enough that I could get away from this piece of equipment that was running wide open, and I had nobody around to shut it off.
And if you hadn't done that, Kurt, what do you think would have happened?
I don't know. Like I said, whether it would have re-caught and grabbed me and pulled me in further, I can't answer that question, but I took the action I did to try to prevent it if it would have happened.
So how much of your leg do you think was already severed before you got the penknife out to just get yourself free?
Well, it was on my leg. I don't know if you want to see, but I had one bone sticking out about this far, and that's what I held on to, was that bone when I was trying to hold myself.
Amazing. And
it just kept jerking it, and so that's when I ended up cutting it. I mean, I could see this much of the bone, so it was pretty much up to here, and then right up in here is where it went down around. It was kind of wrapped on a little pipe that was inside this hopper.
Incredible.
And that's where I was trying to cut.
And Kurt, presumably, once you'd done this, you must have been fearing then that you might bleed, might bleed to death from the injury you sustained. How did you then manage to get help?
Well, at the time, I never thought anything about bleeding. It just wasn't my thought, I guess. And I just took off on my hands and knees, or well, mostly my elbows, because I didn't know, this leg I kept trying to hold up because I didn't know, you know, I could see some of it looking back, but all I could see is the bone sticking up in the air, and pretty much just drug myself on my knees and my elbows, about 200 feet, maybe a hair more, to a building where well, it's our office, what we call our office for our business, and to get to a phone, because I couldn't find my cell phone. Nobody can yet. I'm not sure if it's in the bin or where it ended up, but got to the office, and then I called my son instead of 911. Well, everybody asks why. Well, my son's been on a volunteer fire and rescue ever since he was 16 years old, and he's 31 now, and I knew he was going to be there anyway, so I called him, and he got the rest of the ball in motion.
And Kurt, you're being remarkably stoic about all this. It's an amazingly dramatic thing to have happened to you. How are you coping now with your life, without your leg?
Oh, it's disappointing that I lost it, but I mean, it could have been a lot worse. And I guess my biggest way to cope with it is when I was in the hospital and down in Madonna, down in Lincoln, and for rehabilitation, I see people that are way worse off than I am, that have no chance of getting out of wheelchairs or stuff like that. And sure, it's an inconvenience it could be up to a year, but I've got a good chance of being. One thing that helped me too, it's below my knee for a prosthetic. They say that is tremendously helpful, and that I can someday be close to normal, and that won't be totally normal, but I'll be able to walk real decent.
Well, Kurt, it's an amazing attitude. It's a fantastic attitude, actually, very inspiring. Thank you so much for joining us. It's an extraordinary story. What would you do if you were in those shoes and you really, the only way to save your life would be to basically cut your leg off, and you took that action, you're there, you're alive to tell the story, and we have great admiration for you, and best of luck with your rehab, and maybe we'll talk to you again when you get your prosthetic leg. That'd be great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. These two you got here helping here are pretty darn good, nice people, too.
Oh, we got our team out there, yeah.
Great. Well,
Dan and Claire out with you.
They have their moments, Kurt. They have their moments. Kurt, thank you very much indeed. We really appreciate it.
All righty. Thank you.
That's incredible.
Wow.
What an amazing guy.
What a story.
Absolutely incredible.
You see, what an amazing attitude, right? I went to a hospital. I just saw loads of people far worse than me.
Yeah.
In the end, I'm alive. I'm cracking on. I've got a prosthetic leg. It's an inconvenience.
It's not the worst thing that could have happened.
That's what I'm talking about. That's mental strength and resilience when you've been dealt a massively bad blow. Let's have more Kurt in our lives.